Could you take us through some of the algorithms, for instance, into an algorithm on like what you would do in terms of fillers, Botox, things like that? I know you do Botox, a whole spectrum of things, and
Right.
you're not restricted by one product or anything else. You try to match the problem to the product or procedure. Could you take us through kind of like your algorithms for that middle-aged patient, for instance, who comes in with maybe some shadowing of the cheek and some deeper nasolabial lines and maybe thinning of the
Sure.
lips?
Sure. So I think the first point is that in the assessment, which really honestly is, I think, the most difficult part of the consultation, coming up with an assessment and treatment plan, I kind of look from the hairline down to their neck, and I literally systematically go from top to bottom, and I analyze each of the different parts. So I analyze the height of their forehead, the height of their mid face, and then the lower face. So I kind of look to see, are they roughly equal thirds? Because that's what we're kind of ideally trying to achieve. And then there are things that I can do to address those. Then I look at how about the fifths? So moving, if you divide the face into 5 parts, moving from side to side, I look to see if those are roughly equal. And then I look at projection of various parts. So I look at what is their facial shape, in other words. So is it someone that has a long, skinny face who has no projection of their outer cheeks? Is it someone that's got a very wide face at the bottom, and so the cheeks are less prominent as a result? Is it someone who's older and has got temporal hollowing? So I'm kind of looking at those things because, to specifically address what you said, if someone comes in with hollow under their eyes, their cheeks are being a little bit hollow, and their lips could be bigger, and they're worried about their nasolabial folds, almost always, I think the mid face and the around the eye area is probably, in my view, perhaps the most important on the face. If they're equal things that you can do in different parts, doing that mid face and around the eyes is critical because it's really, we know from studies that that's where the human eye is first directed when we view someone. Secondly is in the perioral or lip area, right?
Hmm.
So I'm always going to address the cheeks and under eye area first. When I'm doing both, or if they can afford both, I do both, but sometimes they can't. And if I have to pick between the cheeks and the under eye area, I'm always going to pick the cheeks. Not always, but the vast majority of
Yeah,
times,
yeah.
because treating the cheeks provides the support for the under eye area. And by providing support and stopping that, what we call nasojugal groove, that shadow that's forming across here, I have a bit of it, we can actually make it look better. And you can actually see very easily by pressing underneath on someone that's in front of you, if you can push it up and make that shadow look better, you know you're going to get a great result by treating the cheeks.
Hmm.
And the other benefit is that when you treat back here, when we have nasolabial folds, what ends up happening is we have the fold that's a valley here, then we have a hill behind it, and then behind further, we have the indentation or another valley. So if we can create that fullness out laterally, like at the mid cheek and over into the zygomatic arches, the cheekbone, in other words, we can often make that contour nice and smooth. And the nasolabial fold kind of disappears also because it's being held up and supported by the filler in the midface. So that's super important. I occasionally treat nasolabial folds, but I have to say, in my practice, it's probably maybe 5% of what I do. And it's
Oh,
almost never the first thing that I do. It's almost always
interesting.
going to be one of the other areas. And
Uh-huh.
then with the lips, I always try to convey the message that the lips don't exist in isolation, right? And we need to look at them in respect of the whole rest of the face. So how wide is the mouth in comparison to the width of the jawline? So if someone has a very wide face and narrow lips, I might even consider injecting botulinum toxin here in the masseters if their masseters are too strong, too thick, too enlarged, so that to shrink the lower face, that on its own will make the lips look wider, right? Because you're
Oh,
then narrowing the lower face.
that's a good point.
Right.
Hmm.
And then the other thing I do is I look at the distance from the what's called the subnasale, the base of the nose, to the middle of the two lips, and I compare that distance to the distance from the middle of the lips to the chin at the lowermost point. The ratio should be roughly 1 to 2. So I kind of look and see, is that the ratio? And if it's not, what can I do to try to adjust it? So I might want to enhance one lip more than the other. I may want to lengthen the chin if their chin is too short. So I kind of
Okay.
try to bring out the importance of doing everything in concert and looking at the whole thing together. And again, we may not be able to do everything because of budget in one go, but it
Right.
allows us some flexibility in planning to be able to give the best possible result.
Yeah.
So that's kind
So
of like my approach.
I think that's amazing. Yeah, because you're looking at it in a harmonious way, and
Yes.
you're looking for facial balance, not just filling in a line or a wrinkle.